Welcome to the Secrets of the Bible channel. Have you ever wondered about the origin of witchcraft, sorcery, and magic? In this video, I present to you a dark and mysterious origin, little discussed by most people. Many are curious about the occult arts and the many forms of magic that exist around the world. What would be its origin, and what does the Bible say about witchcraft, magic, and sorcery? The Bible extensively addresses the subject of magic, and in this video, I share the origin of this entire practice. As always, I ask our subscribers to leave a like to help spread the word and motivate us to continue bringing you more content and studies. For those who are not yet subscribed, watch until the end if the video is relevant to you, and consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. From ancient times, magic was considered a powerful weapon by the ancients. It was widely used and observed in various ancient nations. Virtually all ancient civilizations had their own spells, divinations, necromancy, witchcraft, and sorcery, as well as a variety of other occult arts. In the sacred scriptures, we find numerous references both in the Old Testament and in the New Testament about the different forms of magic that existed in the ancient world. It is evident from both the Old and New Testaments that God vehemently condemns witchcraft and all forms of magic. He is categorically opposed to practices such as witchcraft, spells, enchantments, and sorcery. God demonstrates his complete repudiation of all these forms of magic, and they are condemned in several books of the Old Testament. Now I will discuss the etymologies of the terms magician, witch, diviner, and others in ancient Aramaic, Hebrew, and Persian languages. In Aramaic, the term magician is amgusha, which means belonging to magic. Performer of magical acts, priestly caste of the Persian and Median religion, and sorcerer. It derives from the root magu, which literally means worshipper of fire or flame. As for the term magic, it comes from the Aramaic amgushta, with the meaning of occultist, practice of occultism, and invocation of evil spirits, the magical art, magism, and the doctrine of magicians, worshippers of fire. The root also derives from magu, worshipper of fire or flames. In Hebrew, the term for magic or sorcery is kishathim, which means divination or diviner. The words magic, magician, and magician, all of them, have their origin in Latin and passed through several languages until they reached our language. It also passed into Greek, deriving from Old Persian magus, which is written that way in Old Persian. This ancient term, magu, is derived from the Proto-Indo-European math, which means power. The Persian term may have influenced the ancient Cenozymic magi or magician, as well as shamanism. This Old Persian form seems to have spread into ancient Semitic languages, such as Magash in Talmudic Hebrew and, of course, Amgusha in Aramaic, which means magician, as already mentioned. The Pimogdim, the Chaldeans, acquired a meaning of wisdom or philosophy from the 1st century BC. At the end of the 6th and beginning of the 5th century BC, the Syrian Magusai, that is, the Assyrian sorcerers or Syrian diviners, gained great notoriety as magicians and soothsayers. This term, magician, found its way into ancient Greek, where it was also used with negative connotations to refer to rites considered fraudulent, unconventional, and even dangerous. The Latin language adopted this meaning of the term in the 1st century BC. Through Latin, the concept was incorporated into Christian theology and early Christian views. During the 1st century after Christ, with the first disciples and followers of the apostles, magicians were always associated with magic, witchcraft, and demons. The New Testament also reinforces this association. The Aramaic term for soothsayer or divination is said to be, which means oracle, augury, prediction, and omen. There is a reference to a form of witchcraft involving a piece of barley bread, used for divination through flour. The root of this term, hezem, means to divine, to consult an oracle or an augur. A question that remains in the air is why magic was always related to demons, as we see among 1st century Christians. The disciples, the apostles, the Old Testament, and the New Testament, as well as the prophets, have always condemned, along with God, the practice of magic. The truth is that magic is intrinsically related to demons, as the Holy Scriptures state. Magic, witchcraft, sorcery, necromancy, divination, cartomancy, and all forms of witchcraft have their origin directly in the demons, in the fallen angels. Yes, exactly, magic has its roots in the demons. who were the pagan gods who taught magic to men and women on earth. But you may wonder, why does magic originate with demons? This is due to what the Holy Scriptures mention in the book of Exodus, in the story of Moses and the liberation of the people of Israel from the land of Egypt. In Moses' first appearance to Pharaoh, Moses and Aaron, Moses' brother, through the power of God, turned a wooden staff into a living serpent. Likewise, the magicians, Pharaoh's sorcerers, also did the same, turning their staffs into living animals. However, the serpent of God devoured the serpents of the magicians, demonstrating the superiority of God's power over the power of demons. Despite this, it was an amazing act of witchcraft, which left everyone there impressed. The serpent of God demonstrated greater power over the magic of Pharaoh's magicians. In addition, in the sacred scriptures, we can see that when the waters of the Nile River were turned into blood, the Hebrews, the Israelites, managed to survive during those 3 days, as they had water sources with drinking water. Their water sources were unaffected by the turning to blood, only the waters of the Egyptians. However, Pharaoh's witches and sorcerers went to the fountains of the Israelites, and through magic and witchcraft, also turned the water into blood. This leads us to an interesting curiosity. The pagan gods, the gods of other peoples, such as the Egyptians, Sumerians, Persians, and Greeks, in fact, according to the Bible, are demons. The Apostle Paul himself mentions this in the New Testament, saying that what the Gentiles, other peoples, sacrificed to their gods, they were actually sacrificing to demons. Paul warns that he does not want believers to become partakers with demons in these rites. It is correct to say that magic was taught by the demons themselves, by the fallen angels who were worshipped as pagan gods in antiquity by people of different countries and nationalities. This is the answer to the great question about the origin of magic. Satan and the demons taught magic, and because of that, they gave some ancient nations certain power. Many nations were powerful due to witchcraft and magic. Over the centuries, the practice of magic has been repressed, but even today, in certain countries and regions of the world, magic continues to operate and is powerful. However, God's power is far more powerful than any magic. In the Old Testament, many witches were called necromancers because they consulted the dead and invoked spirits to obtain information about the future. Some verses highlight God's repudiation of witchcraft and all forms of magic. In Leviticus 19, verse 31, it is written, "Do not use mediums or seek someone who consults spirits, for you will be contaminated by them. I am the Lord your God." In Deuteronomy 18, verses 9 to 13, we find the following. "When you enter the land that the Lord your God gives you, do not try to imitate the disgusting things that the nations there practice. Do not allow yourself to find someone among you who burns your son or daughter in sacrifice, who practices divination, or engages in magic, or makes omens, or practices sorcery, or makes incantations. Some kind of psychic or consult the dead. Whoever does these things is repugnant to the Lord. And it is because of these abominations that the Lord your God will drive those nations out of your presence. Be upright before the Lord your God." These verses evidence divine condemnation regarding the practice of sorcery, divination, magic, consulting the dead, and involvement with pagan spirits. God expresses loathing for those who practice such things, and it is because of these abominations that he drove out the nations from the presence of his people. Therefore, it is emphasized that we must remain blameless before the Lord our God. In the book of Samuel, Saul's sin, in this case, was to dabble in necromancy, an ancient evil occult art that tricks people into believing they are communicating with the dead. However, in reality, they are being deceived by demons and the pagan gods of old. In the New Testament, we also find reports of many magicians and sorcerers, in addition to people possessed by spirits of divination and witchcraft. An example of this is the case of Paul, who in the New Testament expelled the spirit of divination that allowed a woman to predict the future. Share in the comments if you already knew this origin and leave your opinion about it. I would also like to invite you to watch one of these videos suggested for you, as I believe it is relevant to your interest. See you soon.